How dare ref? That's he got the ball. Yes, good morning, Spurs fans, and welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boys Dave, Jack, Stevie, Soren, and Donovan's back with us this afternoon. Hopefully, everybody out there is keeping well, and hopefully, we can build off the back of that good win against Bournemouth. Of course, we did beat Burnley opening day of the campaign, probably one of our better games of the season. 2 goals by Richarlison, and they were unbelievable as well. And Brennan Johnson, who's no longer here, finishing off the job. So both scores from that day are not available for today. One is sold, one is injured. So we are looking for other players to step up today in that regard. So it is a big day. The pressure is on. We do need to start picking up some results in the Premier League. Let's welcome a few people in, and then we'll get straight into it. We got Logan, THFC. Good afternoon, fellas. Big up as always. Must-win game today. Come on, you Spurs. And he's also sent in a super sticker. Looks like your dog there, Soren. Is Logan your son?
No.
Looks like your dog here.
It looks like one of them, yeah.
I presume he sent in a diamond there, Jacko.
I'm just pulling up YouTube right now, so I'm running a little bit behind. But yes, it's heart emojis this time.
Oh,
Dave.
heart
Very,
emojis.
very, very, very kind, Logan. Appreciate you, man. Been with us a lot, man. So I do appreciate it.
Very, very kind of you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Stateside Footy saying, Stevie said hello to everybody in here as well. We've also got Magic J44 Spurs. Good to see you. Big up, chat. Big up, Dave, Jack. Spurs under 18 on Spurs play just about to kick off versus Norwich. It's good to see them have some games back. I think they spent, 2 months without a fixture? Absolutely insanity. I mean, what under 21 sort of model are they running there? William Webb, big up, guys. Easy 4-0 win tonight. I can feel it. I hope so, William. I really do hope so, my man. Good to see you in the building. We've also got Kerry King. Afternoon all. Has Frank been saved? We shall see. Come on, you Spurs. I actually think today's game goes a long way. In terms of giving him until the end of the season. I think if he loses today with the fixture we've got coming up in February, I think, puts the club back in a bit of a tricky situation. So I think a win today, and he certainly secures himself a bit of long-term here anyway. El Dante says, afternoon, Jack, Dave, and all those in the stream and chat. Hope you're all doing well. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. Magic is Frank out. We've also got DB in the building. Good to see you, sir. He says afternoon. J Max with us. Big up, Davey Lad, Jack, Steve, Soren, and Donovan. Come on, you Spurs. Great to see you. We also have Dan the Hotspur in the house. Oi, oi, come on, you Spurs. Big up, Dave and Jack. Good to see you. And he also says, big up, panel. We've got King Huddle. Hi, all. I see one big positive this season. We used to have a first team and a B team. When we rest or rotate players now in most positions, not all, there's no longer this massive drop-off in quality. So King Huddle, now you're saying we've got a decent squad. I'm confused. For a while, you were saying we've had a poor squad, but good to see you, King Huddle. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Ulrika in the house. Good to see you. 11 p.m. here. Where are you based, Ulrika? Let us know. We've got NJ as well. Big up to you all. Good to see you in the building. And then we've got William Webb. Love your show, guys. The passion for Spurs is insane, despite our owners.
Thanks, William.
Look, I've always said this, whether I agree with the ownership or not, they're never going to drive some, like me personally, anyway. I'm not going to speak for the rest of the boys, but they're never going to drive me away from supporting this football club, no matter how bad things get. At the end of the day, I live for Spurs. I always have done. So, despite what's going on, they're never going to drive me away. Even if they try to call me not loyal fans, this, that, and the other, guess what? You're never going to get rid of me. I'm always going to show up. So big up, William Webb. Good to see you in the house, and hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Hopefully,
very generous.
Are good down under as well, my man. Very, very generous support there. Jack, anything you want to say to William?
We have to wear many hats sometimes, William Webb, as Spurs fans, right? There are times when we have to make sense of what is a basket case of a football club. You think you have to deal with injuries, then all of a sudden your director of football leaves, and all of a sudden, maybe even the president or the CEO leaves. In the case of Daniel Levy, you have so many weird things happening. When it rains, it pours here. And then also at the same time, we'll have weeks where we're absolutely flying high, and you just have to make sense of it all. So thanks, William. Very, very generous, man. Appreciate it.
The roller coaster of football, William. That's what it is, my man. But good to see you, buddy. Hopefully things are keeping well for you down under. We've also got Ulrika in the house. She's from Sydney. Good to see you, Ulrika. Nice part of the world, that. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself. Do you go to Sydney Opera House much? Let me know. Well, that's the famous building there. And we've also got Paul as well from Playful Spurs. Great to see you in the house. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. Look, let's kick it off. I think we'll get straight to Jack. Oh, Jesus, my document's gone mad here with all my questions in it. Bag full of questions here today, guys. Just bear with me. I'm just getting up to the top page here now. Scrolling through about 15 pages. That's how prepared I am. Jacko, Tottenham returned to Premier League action this weekend away at Turf Moor, coming off a rare, high point, a 2-0 Champions League win over Borussia Dortmund. Was the Dortmund win a turning point, or are you bracing yourself for another harsh Premier League reality check?
I'm going into this quietly confident that we will be able to dispatch Burnley. Probably foolish of me because it has always been very different between Europe and the Premier League. But I'd like to think that the way that we handled Dortmund, when really felt like we were pinned up against the wall. Really, that game we had nobody available, very few players to pick from, very difficult to even figure out how a lineup could even be formed. And we were at home, which is almost like playing away from home for us this season because our record there is just so shocking. And we saw one of the more professional performances from Spurs in a long time, if not the whole season, really. So I really do hope that they can carry this on to a very beatable team like Burnley. I think they're not good at the end of the day. Like, we should be able to beat them. They are going to be at home. But at the end of the day, I do feel like they're a very beatable opposition, and they're a good opportunity for us to give ourselves probably a little bit of false sense of confidence ahead of what is going to be a ridiculously hard February schedule. So, Dave, I'm going to go into this game quietly confident that they can replicate the performance from, of course, on Tuesday night and show it again here. But I mean, the lineup also has huge things to do with it. Hopefully, Thomas Frank doesn't make too many changes that would affect the rhythm of the players. But yeah, Dave, I'm going into it quietly confident. Call me foolish.
No. Look, you're dead right. At the end of the day, if we win a game, we've got to try and build some positivity, some momentum heading into the following game. So hopefully we do that today. Jack, are you mostly buying back into the project after that Dortmund win?
Yeah, no, I'm franking. I'm not
Well,
really
accused of it. We were accused of it on the fan show the other night.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not buying into the project. I'm buying into the fact that we can put 2 wins together. Maybe that all of a sudden sounds like I'm buying into it, but I'm confident that we can put together 2 wins in a row. That's what I would say to that.
Another question for you, Jacko. Why are Spurs in Europe maybe a different team entirely to what we see on Saturdays in the Premier League? Because you look at our home record in Europe, what is it, 24 games now? We won a Europa League last year. We're coming outside and hopefully the top 8 in the Champions League. So we are a completely different team in the Premier League or in Europe than what we are in the domestic campaigns.
I do think you mentioned one of the reasons. There's probably a multitude of reasons, but one of them might be what you mentioned about there is a lot of tactics go into Europe, whereas in the Premier League, it's a mix of tactics, but also the physical edge and the physical side of things. And Spurs will physically outmuscle and beat most European opposition, whether it's with their stamina, work rate, other reasons. But I think the one that's coming to my mind a lot is almost the mentality side of it, where it's very psychological, it seems, in that for almost a year now, if not a year and a half, basically since Ange was in charge and was taking on European games, we did have this similar situation where we were pretty awful in the Premier League, losing a lot of games that we shouldn't have. And then we had this European competition happening midweek, and we kept using it. Almost was like we kept using the European games as an opportunity to bounce back, as an opportunity to sort of right the wrongs of what happened over the Premier League weekend. It's almost like it's become clockwork for these players, where they've gotten so used to that at this point that they're now doing it once again here in the Champions League. And that's been happening for the most part. Like, you can't really fault many of the Champions League performances that we've seen for the most part. And I think
even
that's
the way
what's
PSG was decent.
Exactly. And if anything, it's almost that we started out maybe a bit slow. Like the Villarreal game wasn't the greatest. The Monaco, Bodo Glimt ones weren't the greatest, but somehow they battled back and were able to hold on to results. And now those points have proved to be absolutely vital. But that's what I would say, is that psychologically, perhaps this team for a long time now is intimidated or is psyched out by these Premier League games. They just keep bottling it. And then they know that the next game, they have to bounce back. They have to play a lot better. They have to show the fans that they're capable. And those happen to be often European games.
Yeah, 100%. And Look, I think also Champions League Europe, it's sort of self-motivating for the players. It's where a lot of these players do want to be playing. And, but also I do think physicality has a large part to do it. When you look at the Champions League table, all English teams have a chance of getting inside the top 8. And I think that's just because we're more physically dominant in Europe in that regard. But brilliant answers there, Jacko. Let me welcome a few more people in as we go along, and then we'll head down to Soren because I've got a question which I think might rattle him, even though we'll see. We'll see. We've got Roy Viking in the house. Good to see you. He's from Senja, Norway. Big up, Roy. Great to see you in the building, sir. We've also got Jacob in the house. He's also from Sydney. Good to see you in the building, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. Lovely part of the world, that. Shem Tam is in the building. Morning, Dave. In the dark and sleepy Jack and esteemed panel. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you, Shem Tam. Ulrika says she loves Soren's 2 dogs. They're absolutely beautiful, I have to say. We've also got Glaubs 65 in the house. Dortmund only had 10 men for most of the game. That is an absolute fair point, but at the end of the day, you can only beat what's in front of you, and we've done that, my man. We've got Sully. Good afternoon, gents. Time to build for Tuesday. This win today is a must. Come on, you Spurs. Absolutely spot on, Sully. Good to see you, my man. By the way, I see you around a lot. Where are you from, Sully? Let me know, sir. We've also got Delt K9 in the house. Afternoon, lads. Good to see you. We've also got Paddy Harnett here. Afternoon, gents. Jesus, Jack. Are you doing the Sixth Lord look today?
I need to invest in a much better lamp, to be honest, Patty Harnett. But if I turned on the overhead lights, I think I would look like a Sith Lord in terms of my skin tone. All of a sudden, I'd be transparent. So I'm trying not to blind myself with the overhead light. But the in-between is then me looking very, very evil for these pre-match buildups. Big up, man.
Afternoon, Paddy. Good to see you. David Clark says, great news about James Maddison. His operation wasn't ACL. It was a patella tendon graft where they harvest the patella tendon and graft it to the bone and is considered the strongest for recovery. Well, hopefully that means then we won't get a re-injury on his return. David Clark, very good information there, my man. He must have played or at some sort of level if you know this. We've got Ghosted. Big up, gents. Good to see you, Ghosted. Hopefully you're keeping well. Daniel Larson's with us as well. My God, Jacko, are you awake now? He's definitely awake. Guys, lay off him. It's like 4 a.m. where he is. Lay off him. Iceman says, big up, Dave, Jack, Soren, Steve. Also, everyone in the chat. Don't F up my Saturday. Absolutely spot on. And then we've got Cyprus Spurs as well. Afternoon, gents. And Adrian Tria. Question, should Spurs just concentrate on Europe? Jack, I think he's throwing that one back to you.
At this stage, I really hope we don't have to just give up at this point on the Premier League. We are dangerously close, though, to doing that. We have to win this game. We have to win half, maybe, the games, even though they're going to be very difficult games. I'd say we have to win half the games that we have in February, and then we can have that sense of confidence that maybe we can finish close to the European places. But this is what I'm saying, man. This is as much as people want to be blind to, Thomas Frank in this season. Like, the guy is a game or two away from pretty much losing out on any European football for next season, which I'm pretty sure we thought from the get-go was the unnegotiable, really. Like, you're supposed to be challenging by the end of the season for at least like 7th or 8th position, 9th position if you end up becoming unlucky. But that's what the whole remit was, and he is very close to slipping away from that. So I would hope that we don't have to focus on Europe at this stage, but it might end up coming to that, which is why I've been very critical of Frank. I think you're on mute there, Dave.
I was saying, big up, Adrian G. Good to see you in, my man. Bassoon's back around today. He might start. We're going to have a conversation about him later on, so you can get your third kit back out. Adrian, we've got Delby as well. Nick in the house. Great to see you. We also have Matty Bynum in the house. Good to see you, Matty. Hopefully you're keeping well. Cav Williams, sir. Good to see you in the building. We also have Wembley at once this afternoon, everyone. Pivotal game today. Can the improved attitude and performance from Tuesday be taken forward into the day? Will it be reversed with the disaster of previous Saturdays? To be honest, Wembley, well, we are going to have a conversation about this a little later on, but I think it all comes down to whether Thomas Frank starts off with the same sort of approach, or does he stick to the same approach that sort of have gotten results on the road, against bigger teams? But will it be good enough to beat Burnley? We'll wait and see on that one. But good to see you, Wembley. Hopefully you're keeping well. Let's get Soren involved. Soren, good morning to you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well, or good afternoon. I mean, you've been up probably since 3 o'clock today or this morning. But Dr. Tottenham has been curing sick teams again this season. Burnley are the latest patient to be revived. Spurs have already helped Bournemouth and West Ham and long winless runs. Bournemouth stopping an 11-game drought with a 3-2 home win, and West Ham ending a 10-match league drought with a 2-1 victory last weekend. Burnley's illness is even worse, though, Soren. They haven't won a league game since October and are currently on a 13-game winless run. So why do Spurs so often struggle against teams in poor form? Is this a mentality problem, a tactical flaw, or a combination of both?
Yeah, I think it's a mentality problem, but the big thing today is Burnley will be on a 14-game losing streak because we ain't losing today. It's one of those where we've had this discussion so often recently over the last few seasons as to why can teams that are not playing well or losing come to Tottenham and beat us? What is it? And the only thing you can look at is it's got to be a mentality thing. It's got to be that these, players just seem to be, oh, we can just basically go out on this pitch and win. And whether we can blame that on the managers for not being able to motivate players, it seems that the players only seem to motivate when we're playing the big teams. So it's a head scratcher. But I'm pretty confident today. As you know, I predicted the win in midweek, and we came through. So yeah, I think we're going to go on another win today, and I'm confident, or I'm hopeful. Maybe the two are very different. That we're going to be safe, and look, we don't need to finish in a European spot because we're winning the Champions League, so we'll qualify automatically.
I love that optimism there, Soren. I really do.
Let's go.
I really do. Hopefully, Dr. Tottenham can be struck off the practitioners list at this point. I'm starting to get absolutely fed up with it. I'm starting to get absolutely sick with it. But I do think some of it does partly come down to mentality, in these sort of games. Do we maybe take our foot off the gas? Do we maybe underestimate them? I mean, Soren, is there a psychological issue when Spurs come up against teams with nothing to lose? I mean, do Spurs underestimate struggling sides, or do those teams expose maybe a lack of control and game management, which I think is fair to say has been definitely accused of Tottenham over the last couple of years as well?
Look, it's almost as if, we go into these games and it's another Saturday afternoon game, or it's another Sunday, or it's another Monday, whichever day you want to class it as. Whereas a lot of these teams are coming and playing us, and they're seeing it as a big, big game. And they're raising their standards for those big games, and we're just not doing it. Whether, like I said, whether it's a mentality with the players or whether it's a mentality with the manager not being able to instill going out there, and no matter who you're playing, you turn up. And, that's the problem, that we just don't turn up. I mean, look at the last few seasons. We go to Man City, and supposedly one of the best teams in Europe, and we've done them so many times. And then you go to your Wolves or, your Southamptons, whoever, and we struggle. So the only thing you can say is it's got to be a mentality problem. But that said, we do struggle to beat these teams that sit back. Any team that literally puts 11 players back in their own half and we've got to break it down, we struggle for that. So it's got to be a little bit of mentality, and it's got a little bit of tactics. You kind of almost want to let them come on to us, draw them back out and hit on the brakes and things like that. But we've I can't remember a time when we haven't struggled against poor teams.
Yeah. Let me ask you, though, when it comes to on the pitch, because knowing Thomas Frank, you'll probably want to blame us fans for it or something like that, like he's done this season. But, is this about leadership on the pitch from your captain not allowing this sort of thing to happen, or is it down to coaching from the sidelines?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, we've seen the difference. So last year and the year before, we had Ange, where everybody was moaning he didn't do any coaching from the sidelines. And then this year we've got Thomas Frank, who does do coaching from the sidelines, and there's no difference. It's probably worse this year than anything, but it's just a weird one that these players, and it's not just these players. We can go back years and years and years and say we just do not seem to turn up for these games that, as Tottenham fans, we believe we should be winning. And, you know, I mean, you can always understand that you know, there's a saying now, there are no easy games in the Premiership, and there aren't. You know, we look at the Burnley today, drew last week with Liverpool. You know, fair enough, Liverpool aren't on form, but they're certainly not playing bad. So, you know, if you can go to Liverpool and get a draw, then you're not considered a crappy little team like teams used to be. You know, you look at it and there are very few walkovers these days. You know, it's you don't see the. I mean, going back, you know, remember when we played Wigan? Was it 9-0 or something like that? You know, you don't see those real type of scores anymore. So I just think it's a problem with the mentality. Whether it's, like I say, whether it's the coaching and they just cannot instill a winning mentality into this team, or whether it's just the mentality of the club. Because, you know, it's gone on for so long, it's not somewhat recent, is it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it went on last season on the round. You know, I think we gave up points to Ipswich and teams like that as well. I mean, absolutely shocking. But, you know, I definitely think there's a massive case of maybe from the players' point of view, underestimating the opposition maybe when we walk out on the pitch in that regard. You know, you start seeing sloppy passes and, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, I also think it just comes down to strong lead, strong captain and management, you know, to get into players before the game and make sure that this doesn't happen again today in that regard.
That's it. I mean, you see, you know, we've been linked to one or two players at the moment, which, you know, they're strong characters. You know, if we get Andy Robinson, is it Robertson? You know, he's a lad that gives orders on the pitch. You know, he's used to winning and he's got that winning mentality. You look, you know, hopefully like we said at the beginning of the season with Paulinho and sort of Van der Ven starting to be a little bit more vocal these days. Romero needs to be more vocal. He seems to have quietened down a bit recently, but, you know, hopefully Gallagher in the middle of the pitch as well. He's a little bit more vocal. He'll rally it up, and this is what we've been lacking for a long time. We've been screaming for 3-4 seasons now that we have no leaders on the pitch. We've got good players. We've got players that, you know, we've called captain, but they're not what you would call motivators on the pitch. You know, how long is it since, you know, like the Dawsons and people like that, where all you ever saw was screaming on the pitch and they wouldn't let you not be doing your job. And we haven't had that for such a long time. We've been quite soft. So hopefully with the way it seems to be that we're looking at players who've got a more winning mentality, a mentality of not wanting to lose. Hopefully, if we keep bringing one or two more of those in, then we'll get those leaders on the pitch and we'll see a difference.
100%. 100%. Big up, Sully. I'll definitely check out João Paulini's interview, you know, once I've finished here today, my man. Big yourself up. Thank you for alerting me to that, my man. We've also got Stevie D in the house as well. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well. Stevie, on to you, my man. I mean, Burnley have taken points off Manchester United and Liverpool in their last 2 matches, so Spurs won't intimidate them at Turf Moor today. Given Tottenham's own struggles in the Premier League, how confident are you that you know, Spurs about getting a result today against a Burnley side fighting for survival?
That's a great question, and the answer is I'm not confident at all. And this is a remarkable turn, a remarkable about face from where we were 6 years ago, 7 years ago, where this wasn't even a question. Because we would walk into matches even under Mourinho, even under Conte, let alone Pochettino. We would walk into these type of matches, teams that were, you know, struggling for solidarity in the Premier League, teams that were on the verge of going down. It wasn't even a question. We would walk into a place like Turf Moor and we would be able to come out with a 2-1 or a 3-1 type victory. And it wasn't, you know, it was just another day of the Prem. That being said, there's two things that that actually kind of shake me a little bit. Number one is the fact that the Premier League isn't as wide as it was 6 years ago. Mid-table teams are close to the top, and even relegation fodder for that matter are capable of going on a run where they're going to be able to nick points. Burnley, I think over the last couple of weeks, got a result against Man City and Liverpool when otherwise they probably should have been played off the pitch, and it just kind of goes to show you that even a team like Burnley, when they're up for it, can find a result. And I think right now they're probably in their best form of the season. And so from that standpoint, if Thomas Frank was the type of guy that didn't spend so much time focusing on what his opponents are going to do, or or showing them so much respect, where by the time that we step on the pitch, we're not thinking about winning, we're thinking about just keeping it close. Maybe at that stage, I probably would, I would be thinking differently. But that being said, this isn't just a Thomas Frank issue. This also happened last season under Ange, where we would actually have a match in the Champions League, and we couldn't carry that over to the Saturday. This year, we've seen it as well too, where we would, against FC Copenhagen, we actually had a very good match, and everything was feeling great, but we couldn't carry it over to the weekend for whatever reason. We just can't do that. Now, that being said, the opponent today would suggest that there is an opportunity to carry it over. And early in the season, our road form was pretty good, but lately even that has kind of came back and bit us in the ass a little bit. So from that standpoint, I don't know, man, I'm a little shaky about today, and the confidence level isn't as high as I would normally have it, because when you're dealing with teams that have absolutely nothing to lose, you kind of have to throw the script gets thrown out a little bit, because last weekend against West Ham, it was the exact same situation. They had nothing to lose, and they took advantage. They took advantage when they were supposed to. And I would probably assume that Mr. Parker is looking at that match last weekend and looking at what West Ham did successfully against us, and is looking for ways to put them in a position where they can also nick the entire 3 points.
I just think it comes down to bravery, some of these games. Like, don't get me wrong, we struggle to break teams down that sit in low block, and notoriously have done for quite some time, especially without Kane and Son. But if we sit off them and allow them to get comfortable in their own stadium, off the back of their two recent sort of results, the crowd are going to be up for the fight to get out. It's going to turn into a tricky afternoon very, very quickly. I think it's very important, Stevie, that we almost start the way we did against Stormers.
I would
put them on
without a doubt. And we heard the same rhetoric coming from Thomas Frank going into that Forest match as well too. We're going to be on the front foot. We're going to be brave, and we're not going to sit back on our laurels. And sure enough, they sacked off the entire first half and allowed Nottingham Forest to get into it. And that's my biggest worry, whether or not these players are going to approach Burnley with the same motivation and the same enthusiasm as they did with Borussia Dortmund, because we know it's in them. We know it's in them for they can go out there and take a team to task in the first 45. But I guess the question is how important is this game to the players versus a guy like Thomas Frank? Because both of these teams are absolutely desperate for 3 points, and if we're to drop it and Nottingham Forest wins or Bournemouth pick up points, now all of a sudden that 10-point gap between where we're at in the relegation line, all of a sudden that switches a little bit, and we get closer to the drop. And so from that standpoint, this is a game where everybody has to be on the same page from Frank to the players, right? Yeah. So you're absolutely right when it comes to bravery, but also motivation as well too. It's like sometimes I wonder whether or not these players are actually motivated to play for a guy like Thomas Frank, and whether or not that Champions League was more on the players than Frank. You get what I'm saying?
No, 100%. I do get what you're saying. I do think sort of mentality and attitude, is vital in games like this. If you rock up and you just do things correctly, 9 times out of 10, you will come out the right side of the scoreline. It's when you start to cheat a little bit is when you get found out. Also want to welcome in just quickly before we get to Donovan. We've got Trinidad in the house. Great to see you, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Luke in the building. Good to see you, Luke. A long time no see. Wherever you've been hiding. We've also got Paul Mansbridge. Great to see you. And also Brandon in the building. Good to see you, sir. And Alex Mitchin as well. And Lupercal is in with us as well. Good to see everybody. Sorry, Donovan. Down to you, my man. Good to have you back. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. Look, Burnley did defend deep and counter-attack effectively against both Man United and Liverpool in recent weeks to pick up 2 draws. And we're expecting the same approach today, from Brentford, and hopefully Spurs are likely to dominate possession. But in games like this one lapse in concentration could be absolutely vital or fatal in terms of, us losing this game today. How important is it that Spurs defence stays fully switched on for the full 90 minutes, given how much individual errors have actually cost this team, not just this season, but even last season?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, thanks for having me on again, by the way. Pick up Dave, Jack, and the whole committee.
Fresh for the time of the morning it's at, Donovan. Fair play.
Yeah, right in the middle of a cold spell, lad. It's like -50 out right now. It's ridiculous out here, man. It's
I like cold, but even I wouldn't survive in that. I'd be crying to get back to the sun in that.
Yeah, no. Prayers out to our friends in Winnipeg right now. But I take it back to what you were saying about Ramirez's leadership. Like, you talk about individual errors. I'll think back to last year when we were talking about almost the exact same scenario, where early in the morning we're talking about Tottenham's defense, and we're breaking down the individual mistakes of the defense. And I'm thinking back to some games right now, like away at Crystal Palace, like Destiny Doji right out of place, getting that. It seemed like that left hand side is really exposed last year. Honestly, if you take back a lot of our goals,
Vicario not coming out for the corner.
And if you look back at a lot of goals this year, it just seems like Romero's doing walkabouts. It seems like the games that he's focused on, his leadership position of the pitch, he starts lacking defensively, and then he starts lacking defensively on the pitch. When the games he's locked on defensively, those are the games he loses it. And look at that second yellow he got in the Liverpool game. So you can't just blame it on him. He's a young captain. He's aggressive. There's a language barrier. Like, there's a World Cup winner. There's lots of variables. But for me, it's Vicario, man. Like, Vicario is so frustrating. Like, to go from a World Cup winner to that elite echelons of, like, proven shot stopper. Like, this is the goalkeeper. This is where the confidence comes from. This is where we can, build off of to not even a number one to his national team. Nothing defense. Nothing against him. Like, you can only play, like, if what's his name, the big guy, Donnarumma now is Donnaruma's number one. Thanks, Jack. Like, what can you do, right? Like, you can only have so much experience, but at the same time, though, it doesn't help when you kick a basic 50-yard, 30 diagonal angled ball at the touch, right? Like, if you a U18 level pass that any goalkeeper that I could even confidently pick out a pass to the touchline, and when we're already down in a game, or when you already got that negative pressure, and the crowd can see it, the crowd can sense it. When the goalkeeper has it and the goalkeeper's nervous, sometimes I don't know if it's Kinsker or Vicario in that, unfortunately. And so I don't think the quality of goalkeeper has ever been lower as it has. No, I'm just kidding, though. Everyone remembers those early days, right? Friedel and Kirkler Gomez and those days. But I think, yeah, it's a good point, Dave. Like, that goalkeeping and the back line really needs to be solid. Do the basics right. Start at the post, clear back out, push back out, start with the solid offside line, get through that first 5 to 10 minutes, But and that's a good point, Dave. I didn't think about that. The individual errors costing us, but for me, it's flappy hands, man. I think we need to look at that goalkeeper position in the summer.
I think 100%. You sort of answered one of my follow-up questions there as well, in terms of which player maybe are you worried about the most. I think Vicario is certainly one. I think Porro is another one for me. Once he starts once his player beats him once or twice, all of a sudden he starts dropping in, almost to the point where Romero has to come out and cover for him, and then you're dragging Romero out of position, and then it just leaves you open in the middle. And how many teams score off the back of doing that? So, Vicario and Porro are two players that really need to step it up in that regard, in terms of not switching off today and not giving Burnley an avenue to a goal or an easy goal to score. Another follow-up question for you, Donovan. I mean, there's been a lot of talk around the quality of the squad. Is Spurs' biggest weakness actually concentrations in games, game management, just things like that, rather than actually the quality of what we've got?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I'm looking at our actual on paper. I'm looking at the quality. Like, I'm looking at the likes of, like, we have the names of James Maddison, Dejan Kulusevski, right? Lucas Bergvall is turning out to be quite the player. Dominic Solanke. But then you look at what we had. Like, there wasn't too long ago where we had the likes of, we were lining up with Bale, Son and Kane, right? And Ericsson, right? We had a dwindling Delhi, but we still had those the echelons of world class ability in our roster. I'm looking at our roster right now at the world class ability, and it's almost like it's opposite now. It's almost like we're defensive heavy, because you do look at that back line and say what you want about it, and the emergence of Jed Spence, but that's one of the best backlines in Europe on its day. Like, that's a very good backline. Like, it's to the point where even other clubs and other people are talking about how solid the Tottenham backline is. Like, even before we won the European Cup last year, I remember like some pundits and some of my friends and some of the people in the soccer community, football community in North America, are like, yeah, there's no reason Tottenham, like, that backline is so good. Like, we couldn't understand why we were 17th. But for the actual overall squad, Tal, Solanke, and Odegaard is not good enough, unfortunately, going forward for us. But we can't really judge them because we don't have a David Kulusevski, right? We don't even have a Madison firing on all cylinders, right? We don't see what a Xavi Simons looks like when he doesn't have to be the sole creativity hub of our team, right? When he can share that burden between 2 or 3 other players that can get cycled in and out, well, that takes the burden of the squad off the squad. And I'll say, I don't have to explain this, but that's how like injuries like will lessen. And now we have like 13 first people injured. I mean, anyone can go into the transfer market for a cheap fix right now for a $60 million winger, but like, what's going to happen when he comes back? Is he going to sit on the bench? Is he going to have those scenarios where, you know, one person wants a loan? We have a good squad. I agree with that comment earlier. The buddy saying how it's good to have a squad where we don't have an A and B team anymore. We can literally just swap and rotate players. And I've been saying this for a while, that Jed Spence needs to be pushed a little farther up the pitch, and it seems how it happens organically now, almost like a Bale-like transition. Nothing to get ahead, nothing to put too much air in his boots. But yeah, I'd like to see an addition to the front line, particularly like a world-class addition, one that like back in the days when you had like the Ginola, right, and you signed a Klinsmann, we need a number, especially now. Yeah, something that, you know, where you open the papers and you look at the papers and you dominate the media for 3 weeks and people are realizing, wow, this is the club from London. This is Tottenham Hotspur. This is the first club, by the way, that bought the first £100,000 player, right? The first club that, like, you know, went and won a European trophy. This is the first club, you know. So like, we have to have that echelons now. Now we don't have a penny pincher at the helm. It seems like all these club statements and all these press releases are up to something. Well, you know, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see a Rafael through the door. You know, I'd like to see a trying to think of another big starlet name that could be big for us. That Wirtz guy, I guess, but he's over at Liverpool now, right? So like, we need some big players, man. Even in Dembele, we could have got Dembele, but we pitched out and got a Frenchman instead. Tell, like a couple seasons ago, right, when he was out of form, going to Barcelona. Like, push the boat out. Get a good player and get a couple good players, and that can sell the jerseys, get the fans back in their seats, and get a feel-good atmosphere back right now. Because right now we're splitting hairs.
No, 100%. I definitely agree with you. I think most people agree with you there. We definitely missed that sort of star quality, that real star player in that front line. That, look, to be fair, most of my lifetime I've probably been spoiled in that regard. Tottenham have always sort of had it in that front line, and it makes a massive difference. But why we don't have it, this is where we do need everybody to start coming together, not having them silly lapses and concentrations, under-hit passes, not tracking a runner, you know, because I do believe there is quality in this squad. It's just, I think there's a severe lack of leadership on the pitch, like Soren was talking about earlier on, in terms of, you know, someone really grabbing the game by the horns, you know, bollocking people. There's a guy out of position, calling them, telling them to tuck back in. You know, if there's a guy being lazy, give him a bollocking, get him running on the overlap and stuff like that. It really misses that out on the football pitch. And look, we can sit here and say you need the manager barking shit from the sidelines and stuff. Frank is doing that, and it's still not making a difference. It's got to come with some of the individuals on the football pitch in that regard. We'll take a couple more comments, and then I want to have a chat around this relegation talk that seems to be popping up around Tottenham Hotspur, and just see where people are at with it. We've got Ian Cook in the house. Good to see you, Ian. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. Good to see you, buddy. And he says, good afternoon, lads. Let's get a win today. Come on, you Spurs. I mean, look, all we want to do is win games of football, Ian. That's all we want. No one wants to be sitting here bitching, moaning, pulling out the owners, the recruitment, the players, the manager and stuff like that. No one wants to do it. We just want to win games. So hopefully we can back up the impressive victory during the week against Dortmund with another one today. What I will say is, though, Frank has some interesting calls, especially around someone like Xavi Simons today, which we'll get on to a bit later. You know, in terms of, Do you hold him back for Frankfurt, given how much his ankle ballooned up after the Dortmund game? Or do you sort of put him out there, risking being slaughtered today, like we see him every Premier League game, people just taking him out, and maybe risking a long-term injury in that regard? So interesting calls they make. Ian Cook. We've got Dennis Daly. Afternoon, lads. Good to see you. And also Geoff Totten. Great to see you in the building, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well and still on your recovery. My man, good to see you in the building. Jacko, we'll kick it off with you. And after Jacko answers, I mean, you can all sort of eat each other up if that's what you want to do. Spurs are just 10 points above the relegation zone and have won only once in the Premier League since early December. A loss at second bottom Burnley this weekend. Spurs could find themselves 16 and only 7 points above relegation zone if results if results go against us, and compile that with a nightmare February to come. Man City, Newcastle, Arsenal, and Manchester United. What makes this run even more daunting is that Tottenham's Premier League form has been abysmal. Like I said, we've just won 2 of our last 13 games, with only Burnley, Wolves, and Bournemouth winning fewer since the start of November. And Spurs have lost 31 league games since the start of last season. Only bottom side Wolves have lost more in the relegation in that time. So, some people say relegation is a serious threat, Jack. I mean, let's get to the bottom of it today, guys. I mean, how serious is this situation, really?
I don't think we are going to get relegated this season. I think no matter what, the owners will make a move in case it ever gets close to that. I think they will just bring in someone that they know could be able to see us out for the rest of the season for the most part. Even though West Ham are up right now at the minute, I do think West Ham are going to go down, or Forest are going to go down. I don't think we'll end up slipping into a battle with them. But I mean, that's just the thing, with Thomas Frank. Like, I think a lot of us knew that we probably would have to look at the season as more of a building season, but you're not building when you're pretty much finishing the exact same position that you did last season. Like,
West Ham are beating Sunderland. They've gone one up.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So I don't think we'll fall, even though we'd probably given West Ham all the confidence in the world to try to climb back in the league. I don't think we'll fall into that battle with them, whether it's with Thomas Frank or without Thomas Frank. I think we will be able to stay away from those teams. But I mean, the form that he's been under and just the season in general, like, it hasn't been in any way, shape, or form better than what we were experiencing last season. So this is why I think he's a guy that, no matter what, even if he picks up a win against Dortmund, he's under massive pressure. Like, there's just no reason that Spurs should be this bad in the Premier League. Like, I think we all were, like I said, hoping for around 7th, 8th, 9th position going into this season. But he has dramatically underperformed that. And also, when you think about how a lot of teams like Fulham, a lot of teams like Everton, the Sunderlands of the world, that a lot of people would have had in probably their season predictions where we are right now, those teams are dramatically outperforming us and seemingly doing a lot better with, I would argue, much worse starting 11s and just much worse, squads in general. So I just think we're not going to be relegated, Dave. So I'll confirm that for you. If that does end up happening, I'll buy you a soda. I'll buy you a chippy. I'll buy you a takeout. But at the same time, I think Thomas Frank is under massive pressure no matter what, going into this game and going into the games against February. I don't really care that those games are going to be really difficult. He's put himself in a position where he's going to have to win some of those games. Probably not all of them, but he's going to have to win some of them if we stand any chance of getting close to like a conference league spot, at this stage.
And the reality is, like, if we can put 2 or 3 sort of games together with wins, you're back up there and you're back in the European conversation all of a sudden, but it's just when you I think that's right now is born out of hope if anyone's sitting there saying we're going to do this, because when you look at the trend since last season, the amount, only Wolves have lost more games than us. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. And all the stats are telling you we're careering towards this, but we have to try and put a halt to that today, especially with West Ham winning and some of the fixtures we've got coming up. It puts even more pressure on today. But I mean, guys, in general, I mean, any of you can come in on this. Does the league table maybe exaggerate Spurs' problem, or does it actually reflect, what we're seeing?
Well, are we out of, like, forgive me, it's been a hectic year. Like, I'm transition. We're out of like all competitions other than the Champions League and the Premier League right now.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
it's like we've dug ourselves into this inevitable situation of like where we kind of have to like roll the die. It's like we've passed the pass line, we got it all loaded up, and we roll 7, we roll 7, we roll 7. Man, no, dude, like we have to get these wins on the board, and unfortunately, we put ourselves in a position where, you know, it happens every year. But we play ourselves into this position. There's no other way of it. So, yeah, with last chance saloon, there's nothing more we can really say. So, European football to me, especially after the season we just had, is unnegotiable. Like I think we need European football. At the same time, you have to look at the situation. Like the math doesn't lie. Like I'm very big on statistics and probability and adding probability to your level of success. And like if your formula is setting you up for a certain way, like you got to stop that rot. And that's what Tuesday was. What you think, right? So it's if it's not an anomaly, you have to win today. Like you have to win today. Yeah. So that's just my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, Stevie, Soren, do you believe relegation is a threat to Spurs? Because there is an old saying out there: you're never too good to go down.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we're too big to go down, but like you've just said, you're never too big to go down. I've never, even last year, never even entertained the notion of we were going to go down. And at the beginning of this season, we sat on this show talking about what the goals were for this season, and people were coming in saying, "Oh, well, they've said we're going to compete on all 4 levels and all this lot." And I and a few others sat here and we said, no, there's only 2 competitions this club is interested in, and that is the Premier League and the Champions League.
Yeah.
The Premier League, not to win it. I'm not talking about winning it. I'm talking about staying in it. And yes, European places, obviously. And then having a good run in the Champions League. That's where the money is. That's all that this club is interested in, is money. And at the moment, we're doing well. We'll qualify for the next stages of Champions League, hopefully. And I see us still qualifying for some sort of European competition next season. Look,
do we have Dermot on today?
But look, I mean, you've just said it. We're only a few actual games away from.
But like we have to beat Burnley, then we have to back that up against City, Arsenal, United, Newcastle. Like they're the fixtures coming up off the back of the Burnley game.
You know, I mean, on paper, the way we've been playing, we've got no chance. But like we said earlier, you know, in that little dreamland that some of us live in, whenever we play these bigger teams, we seem to step up a little bit. And you know, as Tottenham fans, we should never be afraid of going to City anymore. I'm not saying we're going to win it before anybody starts jumping on me, but you know, we've shown we can play these teams. And look, if we get 3 points today, and if we manage to win 1 and draw 1 of those games that you've just mentioned, then it's not the end of the world. And then after that, we've got some supposedly easier games to play where we can start picking up some points. But look, what we've got to consider is, you know, we've got to play these big teams, but so does everybody else. And those teams that are just above us have got to play these big teams, and they've got to play each other. So until the end of the season, there is going to be points dropped. There is going to be points won. There is going to be points, you know, draws and whatever. All we've got to do is just try and keep picking up points. And look, if for the last 2 or 3 seasons, we've sat on this show and we've always said Tottenham Hotspur look better when they are actually attacking teams and playing the way we want to. And we saw that against Dortmund. You know, we played quite well. And if we can keep that sort of form up, then what's to say we can't pick 3 points up today? What's to say?
The problem is with that, Soren, I firmly believe when you look at the course of events over this week, the fact that Thomas Frank was pulled in after West Ham, you know, they had this big crisis meeting with him and everything else. Like, this guy's a pragmatic manager, but yet he came out on the front foot swinging against Dortmund. I wonder how much of that was the board telling them, you gotta like meet us halfway here and adapt your style of play. You know, how much pressure did they put on him because there was 10 to 12 empty thousand seats, you know, ahead of their biggest Champions League sellout fixture, you know, this season. And the fact that it's took this long, you know, for him to sort of realize that is a huge concern for me. And at what point does he go back to what he knows?
And I fully understand that, and I fully agree with you. But what's to say that wasn't the start of us seeing a different style of play? Then what's to say? Look, when he was managing before, he wasn't necessarily known that every game he was just going to sit back. Some of the football that they played was quite entertaining, and what's to say that he's seen the way that we can play like that. And look, we had a lot of players that weren't necessarily starters, or the bench was weak. If we're going ahead with that, then these kids kind of have a bit less fearless. So what's to say that we can't start that type of football now? Everybody told us last season that all of us, the players went to Ange and he changed his philosophy. Well, what's to say, something similar doesn't happen this year, where all of a sudden we've come in, things just start to click sometimes. And it might be that the manager changes his tactics. It might be that the players suddenly start playing. It might be that the board have gone in and said to the players, this guy's staying till the end of the season. You either play for him or you don't. You don't, you go if you don't. And what's to say that, it's a what if situation that we don't just start to click now?
No, look, it could very well could be the case.
It's not impossible. It's not impossible to go to those matches in February and pick up 6 points. It's not impossible. 1 loss and 2 wins, or 1 loss, a win and a draw even. It's not the end of the world. I just don't get the mentality of giving up before we've even got there. That's in my DNA.
I don't think anyone's giving up. I think they're just looking at the fixtures and how we played against them this season and stuff like that, and sort of just making an educated maybe assumption that it's going to be a very, very difficult sort of February. Like, for instance, not London Derby coming up. He plays like that at home against Arsenal. He's lost the entire fan base again. Like, if he approaches the same way he did away from home. We always beat Man City, no matter the state. If he doesn't beat Man City, then we're bang in trouble, especially if West Ham pick up 1 or 2 wins across that, and they've got easier fixtures than us. Newcastle will struggle.
We know February is going to be hard. It would be hard for any manager that was in charge of Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. It's not one of those months where you think, right, we've got 1 hard game and 3 easy games, or 1 hard game and 2 easy games. We've got 3 very, very difficult games. And if when you look at those fixtures, beginning of the season, before we even knew what we were going to be playing like, we could tell February was going to be a horrible month. The only downside to it is we've played shit coming into February. That's the problem. Had we picked up 6, 7, 8 more points already, we wouldn't be as fearful going into that. Now, say for argument's sake, today we go out and we absolutely thrash them, and then all of a sudden you start to have a little bit of faith going into February. We could get 3 draws. That's not the end of the world if 3 draws against those 3 teams. But we're all sat here suddenly negative. Yeah, we could get roasted in all 3 games. But what's the point in kind of giving up before you even got there? And we could just say we could sign 2 or 3 decent players between now and then, and all of a sudden go to City, go to United, go to Arsenal, and absolutely not trans them, but turn them over. And all of a sudden, then what do we start saying?
You're not wrong. We started with Timo Werner on the wing, and we drew them 2-2 or beat them whatever it was last year. We did fine. I don't want to interrupt you, Soren. You're mid-flow. I just want to add on real quick what you said. You said that run, and it sucks that we had that run going into this where we were shit going into it, and then that's kind of. And I agree with you, because that was that part of the run where we have a lot of Football Manager people here, a lot of FIFA fans here. Everybody knows back in the day when you'd load up your career, you'd buy your players, you'd set, you'd hit quick sim, and you'd see if you'd get through a decent chunk of the season. Okay, and then you'd check in, and if you start losing, you'd be like, hey, what's going on? You go in there. I stepped away from the football club with my new job, my new habits, my new lifestyle, thinking, wow, there's that easy run of fixtures between November and December, the Christmas bend at the end of the season. We can just get through, and we can I can not tune into the games. I can kind of watch it willy-nilly and actually see what's going on. Yeah, no, that makes me question my manager now, because going through that period where you thought we could just get these quick wins, and he somehow managed to make a meal out of it. Out of those, I think it was 12 out of 15 obtainable points, we got 5 or something crazy like that. And then, of course, there's injuries and other stuff to play a point, but you're a manager of a football club. That's the only thing that I'm going to question him about, is that period. because now you've put yourself into a scenario where it's like you basically, I think Jack said it earlier, you have to pay you have to win 50% of your games now or something to even qualify for any kind of Europe. Like, yeah, you can talk good for the cameras and you can act well and you can chew your gum and you can do whatever you need to do and you could be a world-class tactician. But if like any good scientist knows, if the data doesn't add up in the lab, then you're not there, right? So nothing against the guy. Like, this is the first season. Everybody knows it's almost a free hit, especially with what just happened last year. But you have a man like Postecoglou who was on that track but gave you something at the end of it. At least you know the devil you know in that scenario. In this one, we just kind of signed off success for a man who sold our highest goal scorer of last season. So now, of course, you're going to be under the spotlight. And so if you're going to be under the spotlight, you're going to ask these tough questions. You have to have the answers. So again, I'll go back to you, Soren. You got to win today's game, man.
And like, before I do want to let Stevie in, but before we do, I do understand what you're saying, Soren, about, not being worried about them. But, if you go back to the first season under Ange Postecoglou, we had a similar run in and around February. We had Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool. We just got trounced every single game, and it got worse and worse and worse as that period went on in them games in terms of competitive levels, because we were in a similar situation. Injuries, not good form going into them games and stuff like that. And that's where my concern comes around these fixtures. Of course, I sit here and I hope, and I come into every game despite what all the stats and everything else is telling me. I'm one of them. I go into the next game. Today's the turning point. Today's the corner. Today's when we change and we start kicking on and building momentum. But realistically, we haven't done that at Tottenham in quite some time, and that's why I worry. But go on, Stevie.
Yeah, the interesting thing, Soren and Dave and Jack, I was old enough to remember when people said that banks were too big to fail. And then under the right circumstances in the right environment, guess what? They failed, right? And that, it's interesting. When it comes to relegation, I never say never, because as you guys are well aware of, right, the last year and a half, the environment hasn't been good. There's been so much instability within this football club, and there's been so many injuries where all of a sudden, matches that you would just expect Spurs to roll, all of a sudden they find themselves on the back end of dropping points, and that's the thing, and that's why even with this club being as big as it is. There is a recipe where a relegation scrap comes into it, because we have seen it before. We almost saw it in the 90s. We saw it. This club has been relegated at certain points in their history. Now, I will say that at least there are three teams that don't necessarily stack up when it comes to talent. And of course, we did bring in Conor Gallagher. It looks like we're going to bring in Robinson as well too. And so you'll hope that the winning mentality that these two bring, and understand that these guys actually have won quite a bit of trophies. Especially Robertson, he's won everything there is to win when it comes to Europe as well too. And you're kind of hoping that leadership is going to help Thomas Frank at least kind of keep us a little bit above the drop. But that being said, it's like you can't underestimate it, because again, we haven't been in this, Dave, you just said it. We haven't ever been in a situation where we go into a match thinking this is where we're going to turn it around, because we can't carry form over. For whatever reason, it's just something that completely eludes us, where all of a sudden one match we feel like, we kind of got the mojo back and everybody is feeling good. And then the next weekend, all of a sudden it just completely falls apart. And, that's unfortunately kind of where we're at. Like we're in that building block foundation period right now, where we're trying to make the pieces fit right now. And sometimes things kind of slip through the cracks. And that's, when it comes to this team, right, you just can never say never, because, I hate to say it, man, Dr. Tottenham is a real thing. All of a sudden, teams that have been struggling, all of a sudden they start feeling better after they play us. I think what West Ham is up right now. You know what I mean? Who knows if that win last week was the win that kind of propelled them forward to get some points. Same thing today with Burnley, right? You can just never say never when it comes to this team.
Absolutely. Well, look, we'll move on there from that relegation talk, and I think everyone's sort of given their opinion on it. We'll take some more comments here from the comment section, and then we'll crack on and we'll talk a little bit about Thomas Frank's future. You know, does that Dortmund win mean he can survive maybe not winning today's game and stuff like that? We've got Dan Coy's in the house. Good to see you, brother. Hopefully you're keeping well. So this afternoon, Dave, Jack, and panel, not on TV, so can't watch, but we'll follow along the watch along. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Harris Army. Really appreciate that, Dan. Game not on in the UK. Absolutely madness. I mean, the amount of money people give up to Sky Sports and BT Sports, you can't get the game on the weekend. It's absolutely crazy. Stephen J. Cam, good to see you back in, buddy. Hopefully you're keeping well this afternoon, guys, for today. Let's hope not another false dawn. And look, I think this is what we're all hoping for. You know, we had green shoots when we beat Brentford, didn't kick on. Beat Palace, didn't kick on. But we beat Dortmund midweek. This is a decent enough fixture to be able to get the 3 points and be able to sort of kick on heading into that period like Soren's talking about, with a small bit of sort of belief and maybe momentum heading into the first game of that period at least. Big up, Steve. We've got Ugly Fish. Good afternoon. Good to see you. Hopefully you are keeping well. We also have Futures Bright, Futures Lily White. Good to see you, sir. The man from Newcastle. Hopefully you're keeping well. What am I hearing? West Ham are 7 points behind us. We have literally won 2 games in ages, and now we have more injuries. We are heading for a relegation battle. If you don't believe it, that's fine. I would like to think we've got enough to sort of just stave it off like we did last season in that one. I do agree with the boys in that regard. However, you can very easily sort of fall into that slope, and it's more so to do with, you know, the teams around us. If they do, like Leeds have picked up form, Bournemouth would probably kick on at some point, you would like to think. You know, then you look at West Ham, maybe beating us, like to Stevie's point, was the sort of thing that they needed to turn a corner and maybe start picking up more results. And when we've got big games back to back to back to back, it's a grueling period. All of a sudden you could come out of that situation and find yourself maybe only 5-6 points above it. Then all of a sudden you are in that conversation. And reality is, does anyone trust the ownership of this club to steer us away from it? Does anyone trust Thomas Frank too? And a lot of people also, you know, say the quality of the squad is crap. So there's half of them people believe in the squad to drag us out of it, you know. So then all of a sudden you are in big trouble. So I do see where people are coming from on that regard. We also have Lily White India. I don't even want Frank to attack all the time. The least he could do is not sit back when we're chasing the game. What's that about? It's not even when we're chasing the game. It's what's killing me at home is what we done against West Ham. Sit off, watch them pass it around, get comfortable. Do you want a pizza? No problem. Roll out the staff from the canteen. There's a pizza for you. Do you want a beer with that? You know, let them settle in, get really comfortable, and then find their confidence. I'm absolutely fed up with it. It's not difficult. You're at home. Go and press the opposition into mistakes. You know, go use that home crowd to get up 4 games. Like the players and Frank are moaning about the atmosphere. Well, if you actually went and played on the front foot and gave Safan something to get up for, maybe the atmosphere wouldn't be as bad. Maybe you do generate that support like you did in the Dortmund game when you attack and go after games the right way. So big up Lily White India. We've also got Mike Pepper says they said the Titanic was unsinkable. Never say ever. We've also got Stevie Fraser in the building. Last year was different because the bottom clubs were further adrift. Fair point. We've also got DB. We have to win today. Spammers are winning, so we absolutely cannot lose. Absolutely spot on. And Q7, good to see you in the building. Afternoon all. Yes, the teams below are worse, which could make us safe. However, our injuries are not easing up, so I'm not going to pretend with the fixture list coming that I'm not looking behind me. Absolutely spot on. I think you should always have one eye over your shoulder, to be honest with you. I think it's naive not to. But look, on that Q7, I mean, I wonder who we're blaming the injuries on this year. It seems to be very quiet around the injuries. You know, we don't seem to be pinning it on one person, which I did warn was a dangerous precedent. So, you know, it seems to be just swept under the carpet. Look, we don't have injuries. You know, it's absolutely
like almost it's ever since Conte rolled in, we're just used to this like broken medical room of like this picture of players, this constant revolving door. You know, it's this caricature of like one going with a cast, the other one's limping down, the other one comes in, one goes out. Just as we're talking about this, we're not talking about negative doom and gloom, but unfortunately you're right. It's foolish not to think about it. What happens in a scenario we go down? Like, I mean, like, listen, like if we win a Champions League, and like I know it doesn't work like that, but it's like, yo, listen, give me that Champions League. I don't really care what happens to the football club. But you're 100% right. Our ownership group is not nearly enough to like manage our situation. And I just want to say this to anyone on putting bad thoughts out there, but You see what happens to those clubs that go down, and then the ownership group just starts selling. They start selling and getting out to protect their ass instead of the assets. No, all I'm going to say is that with what's going on right now in the world and everything, like, we'll see how connected that ownership group is with the fan base if those ticket prices plummet and we drop a division. I'm just going to let you know that it's not going to be a happy, cohesive environment of, oh, we love the fans, come to our Dare Skywalk, come to our go-karts. It's going to be bail out of the community, get this club, and because it happens all the time in North America with franchise clubs. So we got to play ourselves in this scenario, man. We got to play ourselves out of this scenario. You got yourselves into this. We're big boy. We're big clubs. We can get yourselves out of it, right? So start with the win today.
Hopefully, we've got this from TCR. Says Frank does think of us as a tanker. Absolutely spot on. Maybe it's subliminal messaging, like 100%. I guarantee you we're going to lose games. I don't think anyone expected we were going to lose this many games. It's absolutely insane.
Tank the Premier League.
Moving. Let's talk about Thomas Frank today. I mean, Jack, do you think that Dortmund game maybe has brought Frank a little bit of time or put enough credit in the bank to be able to maybe survive maybe another setback today, even if we don't win, say if we draw?
I mean, I was convinced he was going to get sacked after the West Ham game. I was convinced he should have been sacked even before the West Ham game, to be honest. So I don't know what the board really think at this stage. Like, if they were to sack him after Burnley, if we weren't to get a good result today, I would just be, I don't know, pretty amazed by the fact that they just didn't then just sack him after West Ham. If you're going to give him that Dortmund game, then I guess you are showing, the guy that we believe in you, that even despite all the noise from the media, from the fan base, and all the pressure and everything pointing towards you just not being a good enough manager, that we're going to back you and, we believe in you. But if they did sack him after this game, I would just be even more confused, to be perfectly honest. So I guess Thomas Frank is here to stay, Dave, despite what I think and despite what I think should be happening. I feel like he probably will stay in the job, even if he did end up not picking up all 3 points in this Burnley game, because I just think there's so many other stages where they should have sacked him before this anyway. So to sack him after this Burnley one, you're just like, why was this all of a sudden, the catalyst? Why was this all of a sudden the breaking point, when there were probably breaking points before that where they probably should have already considered it?
And the thing is, I'm not going to sit here and say you're firmly in the Frank out. I don't think you are. Like, obviously, you have your opinion on him, and you don't believe
I
he's
definitely
right.
am.
Right,
it's okay. You can put me in there. I've been Frank out for a while now.
I think maybe given evidence, like if we were to turn for him, I think you would sort of give him a fair opportunity. That's why I'm not going to say you're staunch Frank out. You're sort of fluid with it.
I'll give him credit when credit's due, like I did against Dortmund. Like Dortmund, you and I, our whole message was, as much as I'm not a big believer in Thomas Frank, I'm also not going to be totally biased against him and not give him any credit. Like, he got it perfectly spot on against Dortmund. There have been other games this season that I've shown him credit, and I said that he's definitely gotten it right and got the lineup right, the tactics right. There are elements to Thomas Frank's, tactics or just his principles that I can get behind, set pieces, defending, that type of thing. But, I'm not gonna bully him for games that, he's done perfectly well, which were Dortmund. But there have been far more games where I've been very, very underwhelmed, of course.
100%. I just want to follow up with a question. But first of all, I'm so disappointed in myself in saying you're fluid with it. I mean, that's that Gen Z talk that I absolutely hate. So I need to go have a
got motion.
You need to go on. It's such, I can't believe that. I actually feel sick that's come out my mouth. Jack, the follow-up question I wanted to give to you, I mean, for someone like you, what would Frank actually need to show to be able to maybe win you and maybe others in the fan base back? Is it just results? Is it performances, or maybe a clear identity? But I need to go and wash my mouth. I'm absolutely disgusted with myself.
I'd like to be described as fluid. That's what I was called on the basketball court. But for me, I'm more results based. I couldn't really care as much about the style of play as other fans do. That being said, I feel like the majority of Spurs fans do care about style of play more than they really do about results. I think most Spurs fans understand that a lot of the times against the really, really good teams in the Premier League, we don't have a better starting 11 or a better squad than them, but you'd like to hope that we can at least not be intimidated by them. We can come out, play an aggressive, front-footed style of play. I totally can get behind that. I don't really, value that as much as maybe other people do. I kind of do just care more about getting results and being able to try to challenge for the occasional cup and challenge for top 4, top 6 for most seasons. So I just think Thomas Frank, for me, he's got to, as quickly as possible, get us back into the top 8, top 7, and at least have us challenging for a Conference League spot. I think with the amount of money that we have, with the stadium we have, with the size of this fan base, and seeing the teams that are challenging for the top 7 and the top 8 that were championship sides, like Villa was in the championship only so many years ago. Newcastle were in the championship only, so many years ago. Like, these are teams that I just feel like we should be not slipping from the top 6, basically. So I just think that Spurs need to, as quickly as possible, get themselves back to where we belong, which is in the top 6, top 8, challenging for top 4 in a couple of seasons. Hopefully get back to that pedestal. That's where I'm at, Dave. I just think no matter how he does it, you just got to get us back up there as quickly as possible, really.
Absolutely.
I don't really care how he
spot on.
does it. If we played terrorist Frank football for the rest of the games, I wouldn't really care. Maybe other people would, but
I think
that's all. I'm more of a results guy at the end of the day.
I think right now results sort of buy him until the end of the season for sure. But I think he would have to drastically change the style of play to convince anyone that's in the Frank out camp that this guy, he's got to start doing it in style if he's going to convince people that this guy, he is the right guy for the job long term, where people can sort of sit there and go, do you know what? If we can replicate that next season, there's a chance for us to push closer to getting to success than where we were this season. I do think at this point, the style really, really does matter. Which, brings me on to probably the next question that I'm going to throw out there, guys. Do you think that approach that we've seen against Borussia Dortmund is here to stay? I know Stevie's had his problems with the second half and stuff like that, but in general, the way we approach that game, do we believe that's here to stay and that we're going to see that again today? Or do you believe Thomas Frank will revert to the more pragmatic counter-attacking approach, which, to be fair, because we are away today, it has actually brought us results on the road. So where are we at with that?
He's played more pragmatic against most teams away from home. It's just that Burnley are probably one of the most defensive teams in the Premier League. Like, they don't really attack anyone. They pretty much just put every man behind the ball. So if we were to set up pragmatically, could be a very boring, very cagey game, which, again, I don't really care for as long as we pick up a win. But I do hope that we could be the team that's in possession. I do hope that we could be the team on the front foot for the most part, because Burnley pretty much never play, with any sort of aggression or any sort of, intent to dominate the ball against literally anyone. Like, Scott Parker, since coming up from the championship, has been regarded as one of the most defensive managers that you could find.
I was going to ask, is it Scott Parker or is it Hudenhoff? Is Scott Parker okay? Yeah. I think that I think I'll just take it back to Thomas Frank. You got a good talking point there, but Thomas Frank, I don't think, like, naively, I'm like the man of the manager. Like, I'm going to listen to the manager. It's how I am as a football player. It's as I'm as a person. It's like I put my faith in the establishment, right? That's just who I am. That being said, I look back at our history of managers pretty much ever since, Ramos, and I don't want to speak too early, but I see like Pochettino's Tottenham, and you can see during his tenure when Pochettino really made it his Tottenham. Like, it was his Tottenham, right? And then same thing with Mourinho. You could see when he took control. Same thing with these other guys. Even Nuno had a little bit of a go at it, but he's like always like, I just love this. I love the club. I love the Tadarius to do. Like, you don't seem to see Thomas Frank making a grab at the club. You don't see him to making it, this is my club. This is my Tottenham. This is my philosophy. This is how I want to play. It's almost like he's just trying to copy and paste his Brentford model. It doesn't work because of, like, it just doesn't work. We don't have the same players. We don't have the same theos. We don't have the same mentality. You're not trying to shelter a siege. You're trying to conquer now. You have a different caliber of player. You're trying to atone to a different market. And so, that's something that you also ask the guy as well. Are you able to make that step up? Are you able to make that step up in class? Are you able to elevate your personality? Are you able to elevate your own surroundings and your own ability as a manager and as a man to the contribution to the project? So, you take that back to how you asked that question of, is that sustainable, the game style we played against the BVB there, Dortmund? I think it's also a natural emergence of the players too. Like, we have a 21-year-old Wilson Odegaard, 20-year-old Odegaard that's getting let in his shoes every game. I remember a couple months ago I came on and we're like, Wilson Odegaard's world class? No way. And then they look at him play, like, he just played. Like, he's learning his ability. And so you put that with a $60 million finished product ahead of him to take off that pressure so he can actually play without fear. release that little bit of tension that he's playing with. So I think it's a mixture of both. I think it's going to get more fluid. There's that terminology I love so much. I think it's getting more it's going to get more easy to watch, aesthetically pleasing for the eye. It's going to be less chalky. And then we're going to have less of those moments of the game where you see Thomas Frank completely lost the team. Like, you can see there's some of those games where like he's barking orders, but like you can tell when the players are not listening to the manager, and then you can tell it's almost like he's doing it for the camera. And then he's like, "Oh, good job, guys!" And then you can tell the players like disinterested after the game, like to reconnect that little bit. And it starts with wins. And I mean, no manager does good if you start alienating the fans. And so we're starting down that path. You know, I'm saying it again. He played himself to a scenario where it's a result-based business, man. So, you know, let's see what happens today.
Absolutely spot on. And I just hope Frank realizes that this squad is better suited on the front foot. When you look at games we go behind, we come out in the second half, all of a sudden we look like a different team because we've got nothing to lose. We got go on the front foot. We go after them. Even we press after them. Start where we started off against Dortmund. I think Frank really needs to recognize, forget your plug in and play what you done at Brentford. You don't have the same model. You don't have the same recruitment process that they do at Brentford. You know, everyone credited Brentford, what they done in the Premier League, to Thomas Frank. But what they didn't do is look at the owner, look at the, you know, he does the exact same thing Brighton do. And I think that guy also has Hearts in Scotland. Look at Hearts in Scotland right now. It's sitting top of the SPFL out of nowhere, you know, and it speaks more of actually the processes that they've got in place, you know, that it's built to sustain regardless if their manager has moved on or the best players are sold and moved on. It is built to be able to survive beyond that. You know, with Thomas Frank, what he done at Brentford, he can't, I said this from the very beginning, he can't just expect to come in here and employ that at Tottenham and expect it to work and expect fans to be appeased with it. He has to your point, Donovan, elevate himself as a manager. You know, go, right, I'm at a big club now. I've got to, you know, enhance my style of football, because if I want to sustain managing at this level, that's what's going to get me these top jobs. You know, that's what's going to keep getting me them. And, you know, I also question, what did Man United see in them that they turned them down despite the shite that they were in? What did Chelsea not see in them that they turned them down? You know, even though they did give someone like Potter an opportunity and stuff like that. That's where I get concerned that other big clubs, and is that down to style of football? Is that down to the way he sees football? Because he is more of a pragmatic coach, and at big clubs, unless you're Jose Mourinho or you're a Conte and you're winning leagues to be able to sustain that style of football and be accepted at other big clubs, it's never going to work. You know, and I've just seen time and time again managers that struggle, you know, to make that step up. And we're seeing that here right now with Thomas Frank. But for me, winning football matches, yes, I'll take it. But in order for him to convince me he's the right guy to give another season to next season, and for us not to enter that manager market in the summer where there's going to be other big names to be able to attract, he has to drastically improve that style of play. Because if not, come the summer, everyone will be looking at the likes of Poch, you know, and other managers that maybe are out of contracts and stuff like that, and be looking to make the change. So he really has to drastically improve this situation very, very quickly, because the reality is each week, you know, we can sit here and go, oh, well, you know, if we can put 2 or 3 wins together, well, we're coming into February now almost, you know, there's very little time left in the season for him to be able to garner that sort of run. But Stevie, Soren, let's get your opinions on the Thomas Frank thing here.
It's interesting, right? Because in order to fire Thomas Frank, both Johan Lang and Vinny Beck-Contesham have to admit that they got it wrong. And if they have to admit that, their livelihoods come into question. And I think that's the reason why they haven't sacked him, which is why they have committees to discuss it, this, that, and the other. You know, 5 of the board members want him gone, but the ones that matter are keeping him in place, blah, 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 blah. And I think because of it, it's created a lot of instability. But what I will say is that with that win against Dortmund, I think what it ended up doing was giving the board the excuse to let him keep around. And my thought is the fact that they brought in Heitinga from Liverpool, from Ajax. They're going to give Thomas Frank the month of February. Whether that's win, lose, whatever the case may be, just to give Heitinga a little bit more time working with the first team, letting him get his feet wet on the training pitch, and just kind of developing, you know, some sort of relationships before they actually end up turning the team over to him. I think that's I think what they don't want to do is put anybody in a position where it can it can potentially get worse. I think trying to develop that continuity with the players, with the style of football that he's going to want to try to push forward with. I think that's probably what's happening right here. And so the fact is, I think
you think they're warming up Heitinga as the interim manager?
Yeah, a little bit.
God, we're screwed.
Little bit.
Please, Jack, no.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's like who else is out there that the board is going to trust to come in from the street?
But they usually have Mason.
Literally anyone else.
They usually have Mason there, to your point,
Sure. But I mean, it's like at least you have a guy that's already through the door. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. It makes sense after this February run to do it at that stage because they're
might as well have the tea lady then if it's anyone that's already through the door. Like if you're gonna have a manager, like what's like we're just gonna go by managers in our proximity, like managers within our area.
I do see the logic on Steve's point. I do share your frustration though, and I understand your frustration.
Yeah, no, I get it.
In that regard, Matt.
By the way, I don't like any of the options. But that being said, it makes sense to me that they would, they bring in a guy from Liverpool for a reason. That's the thing. It's like I just feel like the board aren't going to pull the trigger until there's at least some certain space that that he's been in the club for a minute. But that being said, it's like as far as I was concerned, he lost me against Chelsea. That home match against Chelsea essentially told me everything I needed to know about the guy. But that being said, I look at this as I don't want to use the term fluid, but that's exactly what it is, right? Like he goes out there. I don't like to use that term, but he goes out there and beats Dortmund. But that being said, it's like regardless of whether he beats or loses against Burnley, he's still gonna be in the role versus Frankfurt. And I think this is a situation where the board are just too afraid to pull the trigger because of what the unknown is. At least with Thomas Frank, you know it. You know exactly what you're going to get. And if you can hold that to the end of the season, you're going to have better options. But that being said, if they end up losing to Burnley and then they lose to Eintracht Frankfurt on the road, and all of a sudden that you have that gauntlet in February, it becomes untenable to the point where once that month ends, you're like, what else are you going to do?
You're hooped.
You're hooped. That's exactly right. You're hooped, right? And so at least you have a guy like Heitinga who's there. Who's there that actually has, that has at least a semblance of front-footed football that we may or may not be able to kick up the table at that point, or at least keep us in a position where we're not going to be in a relegation scrap.
I really hope everything that you said there isn't the case, to be perfectly honest, because I think we'd be absolutely screwed.
By the way, Jack, would you not put it past the board to do something like that?
I mean, I don't give them much credit, but I really hope they're not that stupid where they're just going to bring a guy to warm him up to become an interim manager who has no experience at the top level of even being an interim manager that could keep us alive in the Premier League. Because if we somehow lost to Frankfurt, if we lose this game and then they just give Heitinga, the keys for the rest of the season, this could go. I mean, as much as I don't think Thomas Frank is good enough, I don't see Heitinga doing
I agree.
any better, really. I
Well,
mean, he probably could. I mean,
in.
it's not hard. It's not hard to do much better than Thomas, or it's easy to do better than Thomas Frank. It's not hard to do much worse. But I'd be amazed if any of that were to happen.
I'll just flip the narrative quickly. Like, what can he do that'll like almost like galvanize us? Like, if he can go and somehow win against Arsenal, and I hate saying this because I hate saying this because like we're Tottenham fans, but like the fact that Arsenal has eclipsed us this much and we have to acknowledge the situation of how it is. Like, we have to look at their table, where they're at, and their consistent pattern of behavior for the last 5 years. As much as you want to rip one Lego head, right? Like, and it's disgusting that we're talking like this right now. Like, if he can somehow go and take some win out of those sales, that's huge. That is huge because like Postecoglou had 2 attempts. Mourinho couldn't. Well, he kind of did. Conte, we brutalized him that one time, but the reality is the gulf of class has never been farther. And so if he can somehow not just, go out there and nick a 1-0 or a 2-0, but if he can go and put like a Dortmund performance against an Arsenal, then maybe we can have a conversation. But like, that's where I'm at. Like, that's where we're at right now. Like, anyway, for me, like, that's, I don't know, Soren, what do you think, man?
I just think knowing our board, we'll go out and absolutely trance Burnley today, 3-4-0, and they'll sack him after today's match. You know, that's the way we sort of work, innit? That we keep him when we're expecting him to go, and then when you think he's turned a corner, he's gone. But I don't see the fact that we brought Heitinger in to replace Frank anytime soon. I think he is purely in to give Frank another tool to try and make it that Frank succeeds. I just don't see the board looking to get rid of Frank until at least the summer. It might be different in the summer. If they've got their sights set on somebody like Poch, then I think they'll do absolutely everything within reason to give Frank the opportunity to at least make sure we do not go down, you know, that we finish mid-table, whatever, we make sure we're safe and we kick on again next season. But I just think, you know, he's been brought in to give Frank a little bit extra, to give him possibly, you know, just another set of eyes on the training field, a little bit of help, and just to instill a little bit more belief within the squad. I honestly do not think we're looking at putting an interim manager in, because if we were, it would already be done. So I just think that the board are going to give Frank every single opportunity to succeed.
I would agree with that.
Until summer.
I think
you
the
know
West Ham game showed that it was so easy to get rid of him after West Ham.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, if you were looking for a reason to get rid of Frank, he would have already been gone by now. And the fact that he's still here just says to me that a little bit like we did with Postecoglou, that look, we're going to give you to the end of the season. We're going to give you, you know, another assistant manager, another coach, another whatever. We'll bring a couple of players in. You know, we'll do whatever we can within reason to make sure you at least keep us up and we do as well as we possibly can. It's too big a payout at the moment.
I was going to say,
yeah, he's got like he's got like a 20 million pound payout, correct?
We got 150 million supposedly, so we can use some of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
How much?
What I will say is I think, you know, the Spurs board had to back him through, you know, no matter what was going to happen in January, because what players would then, like, Spurs have need for players. What players are going to sign for the football club if they don't know who they're signing for or who the manager is? So I think it would be an interesting test once the window's closed. You know, if results don't go Frank's way, will that same result be there? You know, because I do think after that West Ham game, I think it was more out of need for the transfer window rather than maybe believing in the guy, you know, long term and stuff like that. I think it'd be interesting to see the board's result once the window closes.
Thing is,
like you look at Man United, right? Man United sacked the manager during the transfer window. They haven't signed anybody this January,
right?
You know what I mean? So I think there's a direct correlation there.
True.
I just think the board have probably looked at things and taken into account the amount of injuries we've got, the amount of sort of main players that are out, and just, you know, just like I say, trying to give him every opportunity to kick on. And I think there'll be. I mean, I do think it would be different if we had a full squad. If we had a full squad and we were losing like we are doing, then I think it would probably be looking a little bit different, because there's no excuses then. Whereas at the moment, there are still excuses as to why the team isn't performing. And whether we want to blame that purely on Frank or whatever, then I think it's hard to do. But I just don't see us sacking a manager until the end of the season, unless, I mean, look, if we lose today and we lose, you know, the next Champions League, and then we go into February and lose all 3 matches there, then yeah, he's gone. I don't think there's a case, but as long as, if we pick 3 points up today, if we go and win the next Champions League match, if we can get a win and a draw or something out of those February matches, then I do not see this board doing anything until the summer. You're on mute.
I think you're on mute there, Dave.
Got to say also, when they look at other big teams that I've said this before, other big teams that have sacked managers, they all ended up with sort of interim people that were amongst the ranks. Real Madrid brought in, Arbeloa, I think the under-21 manager. Chelsea brought in Rosner, but he was in
Rosenior.
was at Strasbourg, Rosenior.
Mhm.
He was at Strasbourg. I think their owners also own them as well. And then you look at Man United brought in Michael Carrick. So I think, Tottenham are sort of maybe looking around going, we don't have that guy, so that's maybe why they're trying to steer this to the end of the season. But make no mistake about it, West Ham are absolutely thumping Sunderland, which makes our result against Sunderland look absolutely ridiculous, given how long we were on top for large periods of that game and not taking the 3 points. So as it stands, we head into today's game 7 points above the relegation zone, which certainly puts the pressure on Frank to be able to deliver a result here today. He has to get the win to keep us keep us with that 10-point buffer, because while you have that, you think it's a long, arduous task to be dragged down into it. But if we start letting that erode away, then all of a sudden we're in a very, very tricky predicament. Luca 14 has sent in a super sticker. Good to see you, Luca. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. Really do appreciate the support here, buddy. What super sticker have we got, Jacko?
Just pounding the fist bumps, Dave.
Legend.
By the looks of things.
very
Thank you,
much.
Luca. Very generous. He also, I think, was talking earlier about Andy Robertson.
Let me go.
He's saying with the signing of Robertson, I'm thinking Perisic. He's also put in saying if there's good quality skill set with the player, losing yard of pace for a defender is not the worst thing. If up against a quality wide player, we can play arrested. Udogi. I mean, probably someone else should come in on it. I'm not really as buzzed about the Robertson signing. It screamed to me as opportunistic by Spurs, but also one that wasn't necessarily very inspiring, because I personally think he is headed down. I think he's very close to probably not being Premier League level. That's just me personally. I think there was a reason why they signed Kirkesh, even though Kirkesh is proving not to maybe be good enough. I don't know. I think Robertson is just the most Ben Davis. It's like we replaced Ben Davis with Scottish, slightly better Ben Davis.
I do.
It's almost like we love Ben Davies so much that we wanted to sign someone kind of similar to Ben Davis, in terms of, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too negative.
Where I do maybe err a side of caution on the side. I think there is actually a lot of positives to it, which I'll get to. But where I urge, to Jack's point, maybe, is that player still in there? Is you look at every single one of them Liverpool players post-club. Their careers are on the decline. They haven't been able to hit the same heights, even the same intensities. And when you're playing under a regime with that intensity for so long, once that almost goes and you're not at that level anymore, it's almost like your body just can't get back to that level or anywhere near it. You go to Pochettino at Tottenham. Like, everyone moaned about the intense regime under Conte and Ange. Pochettino's was absolutely even more intense. And when he left Tottenham, none of them players at Tottenham, bar maybe Kane and Son, really sort of were able to sustain their levels and stuff like that. And that's where I do worry around the Robertson signing. However, I think, many people, when we were signing Sousa, would have sitting there going, where's the ambition? Where's bringing in players of quality that's been there, done that? So I think Robertson is one of them guys. He brings in a wealth of experience with a young squad. Having them senior pros you can look at and get information off is absolutely vital. And I'd rather them go to Robertson for advice than someone like Ben Davies, who hasn't won anything in his career. And when you look at it, you listen to likes of Jermaine Defoe, Robbie Keane, players like that, Ledley King, they all speak about, the tips and the help they got off senior pros in their positions or in around the club that were in amongst the coaching staff that helped them reach the level they got to. And I think that's something that is really underestimated and undervalued in football. You go back and listen to any great player, they all had someone that gave them juicy nuggets of information that helped them develop and stuff like that. I also think, it's not a massive step down if Destiny Udogie, say, gets injured, in terms of bringing Robertson in. Now, are we going to get the same Robertson we've seen at Liverpool where he's bombing up and down the ring? No. Are we going to see as many great crosses as we've seen out at Liverpool? No, because they were camped in the opposition's half. So there is only so much we're going to get out of Robertson compared to maybe what Liverpool have got out of him. But I do think it is a signing in the right direction in terms of bringing in these players just to sort of try and bring about some sort of consistency and get us at a certain level. Because, we said it with Wilson Odegaard, Donovan, you said it sort of earlier on. If we had that sort of 60, 70 million proven player ahead of him that, you sort of give him time to come in and perform. I think, it'd be the same with Sousa. You're not putting that immediate pressure on him that Gray and Bergvall and Odegaard and players like that face. They needed to come in and immediately be the answer. You're giving them a bit of time to get up to speed and, get up, settle in at Tottenham Hotspur and stuff like that. So I do think there's a lot of signings to it. I think many are getting disappointed, and I don't think it should actually be aimed at their Robertson signing in general, is the fact that we need to score. We need to learn to be able to score goals. Scoring goals is what's going to win you points at the end of the day, and that's what's going to drag us out of this situation. And that's where people are getting frustrated. We come into the January transfer window, knowing we needed a striker, knowing we needed another winger. We've brought in a left back and a centre back, and a centre midfielder. We haven't brought in anyone in the area of need, and maybe bringing in Robertson, though, maybe suggests the club are struggling to find that game-changing winger. And maybe Jed Spence, it will be pushed up off the back of his game against Dortmund, for the rest of the campaign. And that's why they're looking at bringing in players further back the pitch to maybe because if you can't bring in them players and you're not scoring goals, at some point you do have to prioritize making sure your midfield is solid, making your back line is solid to keep you in games, and then go and nick a goal from a set piece. And to be honest with you, the fact that Thomas Frank is a pragmatic manager and he wants to show up the defence first, you could maybe argue that maybe the club are backing him in that regard. Mm-hmm. But I do share some of Jack's sort of concerns around it in terms of levels of performances that we're going to get. I'm worried that everyone thinks we're going to get what we've seen out of them, for Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp. That player is not there anymore. I think people do have to realise that he's going to be a much more tamer version.
Big up to Tartan Spurs saying, too, what's not to love a bit of tartan flair at Hotspur Way. You're probably right there. Now that I think about it, Tartan Spurs, we did need a little bit more Scottish blood in the squad.
Big up, Rudy, too. Good to see you. We'll take this from Dropkick Your Teacher as well. This might be a tinfoil hat moment, but what if this Robbo move is to sweeten a move for VDV? We rarely do business with each other. Look, we've got 3.5 years left on VDV's contract. So, to be honest with you, I don't think it's a sweetener, for Liverpool. Maybe Liverpool are trying to sweeten us up, but, I don't think we're going, I don't think it's the other way around on that one, RST.
If anything, there's a tinfoil hat. Do you think that the Sousa transfer has really solidified this Robertson, where it's hey, we've brought in these players in the past, when we had Star come in, we did Yaya Touré's first little bit of his was it Touré? Pretty sure it's Touré. His little bit of his coaching, his first 2 years of coaching, and when he brought Star in right away, and maybe we're doing the same thing with Andy Robertson, Sousa, bringing Sousa, and then we have an experienced pro, because that's all it is. We're not going to get an Andy Robertson anywhere near what he was in the Champions League, right? He's just he's on the twilight of his career. But we're hoping for is an impact signing like Anderson is doing over, and same thing with kind of Xhaka is doing, hopefully a bit better than he did today. But the fact is that these experienced pros, it's a typical locker room signing. You bring them in for the locker room, hope to see out the season. Hopefully that veteran presence can kind of stabilize this very neutral, not very neutral, this very polarizing flow that happens with a lot of young athletes. A lot of young athletes will get together, and that's the good thing about young athletes, is that they'll get this band of invincibility together, and they'll go on these god runs. But then, when it falters and it goes through these things that we're doing right now, well, no one has the experience really in that locker room right now to grab them by the scruff. Because no offense, Ben Davies has only been there once, right? He might be a poor man's version of Ben Davies, but he's experienced and he's won that. He's got over the line. So in those moments, he can experience those youngsters, and especially the moments for example, having a Andy Robertson presence on the bench for the last 10 minutes in the Europa League final against Man United, that brings you that much percentage to level of success too. So it's I'm wondering if maybe they want him to be an understudy for Sousa. Who knows, right?
It could be that Johan Lang is becoming almost under pressure, probably so insecure about the fact that he's only brought in basically teenagers at this point, that he thought maybe I'll just, make people not, so frustrated with me. So I'll bring in someone that's pretty much on the decline at this stage, towards the other end of the spectrum. So that's my
It's a typical locker room signing, right? It's a basic locker room signing. Like it's a sports move that's been done since the Stanley Cup was 4 inches tall, right? Like it's you get a veteran presence in your locker room, right? It doesn't matter what sport, what regime it is. You same thing with war. You want to win a war, you want to entrench yourself in a battle and beat an opposition force that's 10 times the strength of your own. You get veteran presence in your locker room, and you get an old head. It's called an old head. You get an old head in the locker room, and then you get him to calm the waters, because right now we're 7 points away from relegation, and that's nowhere near normal for Tottenham Hotspur.
I know Soren's dying to get in here, so we're going to let him in on the Anthony Robertson thing. One last just quick thing I'm going to say on it is I think bringing in players like Robertson opens the door then for you to bring in, more superstars that are more in the prime of their career rather than the tail end of their career, but having people like him, your João Paulinias and people like that around. So maybe this is sort of a foothold into that market long term, but we'll wait and see. Soren, go ahead. What do you want to say on Anthony?
I just don't see the negative behind the signing. I really don't. And I don't understand what people are going on about. That everybody's moaning that we keep signing young players. We want players that can come in and play now. Well, he kind of comes in and plays now. He's a winner. His mentality is good. He will want to play. He's not coming to put his feet up. He will want to play because, like somebody said a minute ago in the chat, he's wanting his World Cup place. He's got something to prove. He's going to come in. He's not going to accept mediocrity. He's going to come in. He's going to push the players. He's going to push a little bit like Ben Davies probably would with Sousa, that it gives you time then that we're not relying on an 18-year-old kid from Brazil to come in and start. And I just see it that, yes, he's probably a little bit more defensively and he's not going to make those runs at his age, probably up and down. But if we are going to play Spence on the left, it makes a perfect pairing of very solid defensive and attacking minded players on that left-hand side. It really does strengthen that left-hand side. That you look at it, we don't necessarily need another Udogie running up and down the pitch, because if Robinson sits back and holds that back line and lets Spence do his job, I just don't get the negativity behind this signing. And what's it going to cost us? 2-3 million to get him in now?
You gotta find some sort of negative in something, Soren.
Yeah, but it's
a joke, by the way. Anyone else out there? That's not serious. It's a joke. Yeah,
we're wanting to shore up a little bit and hopefully not concede like we have been. I mean, I'm not saying we're conceding a lot, but try and shore up the defense a little bit more. Bringing in a quality player, and we're not talking about a player that's just an average type player. He's a damn good player. He's good at what he does. And I just don't see the negativity behind it. It's to me, it's a perfect signing.
I think a lot of people, are probably venting their frustration that it's not a forward player in an area of massive need.
And
more so than actually, Yeah,
I get that. And I mean, we were discussing this before, and to me, we do need a striker, but we've got to get rid of one as well, because Moan is just dead weight. He needs to go and bring in, somebody that might score some goals. Anything's better than what we're scoring at the moment.
You need Byfield.
Back three here today, it looks like, guys. Jack, line up on you.
Basuma from balloons in the beginning of the season now is on the front photo of the lineup, the starting lineup. Crazy to see. Vicario in goals. Danzo makes the team again with Romero and Van de Ven. You have as well Spence in the team, Pedro Porro. So Dave is probably right. There could be an indication of a back four or back five there, back three. Yeah. Basuma's in midfield alongside Xavi Simons and Gallagher. So Xavi Simons does make the team again with Odebear and Solanke as well. So probably you would think it's going to be
similar to what we've seen against Dortmund, right?
Similar, yeah. You would probably think it's going to be Basuma and Gallagher together in midfield, kind of like what Gray and Bergvall were, and then Xavi Simons will play as that creative number 10, slightly off the left, with Odebear on the right, and then Solanke up top.
Yeah, so
Oh my
I
God.
think we'll run through that again. Vicario in goals. You'll have Romero as right-sided centre-back. Danzo as probably the centre of the three, with Mickey van de Ven on the left. Then you'll go into midfield. You've got probably the double pivot of Basuma and Gallagher. You got then Xavi Simons in your number 10. Udabur then will play as your right wing-back, sort of. Oh, no.
Yeah, he'll play
Oh,
as a
no.
right winger. He'll play as a right winger, and then
Yeah.
Pedro Porro will play as a right wing back.
Yeah, Porro will be your right wing back. Spence then over the left on the other side with Solanke up front. So interesting lineup. Hopefully it's enough for us to be able to, go on the front foot again. It seems like that's what he's trying to replicate here, which isn't bad. Then on the bench you've got Kinski, still hasn't got his move to West Ham. Dragosin, Hell, Udogi, Gray, Colomawani, Scarlett, Janai Byfield makes the bench again, and also Luca Williams-Barnett. So interesting there. Janai Byfield seems like a player that maybe Frank is starting to really like, and maybe put a bit of faith in that regard. But look, we'll go down, get everybody's thoughts, and we'll get their score predictions. Myself and Jack will go off and then ready our thoughts, ahead of the game and the lineup and stuff like that. And we'll be back for the watch along. We'll start with you, Donovan. Let's get your score prediction and your quick thoughts on the lineup.
Yeah, no, big up the lads. So it's good to be back here, and thanks for having me on again. Yeah, with everything going on in the world, it's good to talk football. Get away from it all, see friends, talk football. Yeah, it is weird. I'm looking at it right now. It's like a 5-2-3, 5-3-4-3, kind of almost like Conte-esque. Ironically, this squad Conte would win the league with this squad. That's so ironic. Yeah, I think it just sums up us as a club that we have Balloon Boy like right now. Like, what the hell is that? Like, I never thought I'd see him play Tottenham Hotspur again. He literally just during the New Year's got caught doing some stuff again. Yeah, that's just shambles. Don't have time to talk about that. The double pivot looks real solid. That double pivot of Gallagher and Basuma with Porro and Spence on either side of them for that quick outlet pass, and you have that diagonal speed on each side with Odegaard and Xavi. If we had I personally would have started Starlet over Xavi. Just base Scarlet over Xavi, just basically like he said, his ankle ballooned up. This is enough to beat Burnley comfortably. I'm thinking 3-0.
Love it. We love that confidence. Donovan, and a few other people are maybe saying that as well. You got Sully going with 3-1 Spurs, so people are re-energized.
I'm just hoping Vicario doesn't flop away. It might be 3-1, but as long as Vicario stays, semi solid, he'll be fine.
Yeah, hopefully. Soren, let's get your thoughts and let's get your score prediction, buddy.
Yeah, I don't see a different system to what he's been playing. I wouldn't be surprised if Van der Ven's playing left back with two and Porro right back, Spence in front of him, Odegaard on the right, more or less the same. I don't necessarily see it as a back three, but I wouldn't be surprised if they score, but I'm going with a 3-1.
3-1. I think I was on last one on Spurs last night, and they were joking. They've got Marcus Edwards and Kyle Walker, and usually a former Tottenham player steps up against us. So they were maybe giving Burnley one on that regard. So you're not the only one there, but look, hopefully we can take that again. 3-1 keeps us 10 points above West Ham, which is crucial at this stage. Stevie, we're going to put your channel link in here for you as well, my man. Let's get your thoughts on the lineup and let's get your score prediction as well. And by the way, guys, I was on Stevie's channel. We done a very good power hour yesterday, actually. We got a lot discussed. So make sure you do get over, smash the subscribe and check that out. It was a very, very good conversation. Stevie, get your thoughts, my man.
Well, it actually kind of does read as a back three for me. And, that this was the second time, Soren actually did mention Spence kind of in a forward position. Me personally, I just think it was a one-off considering the roster limitations for that Dortmund match. And me personally, it kind of reads as, Pedro Porro and Jed Spence kind of playing a wing back position. It almost looks like it's a 3-4-2-1. And so if that is the case, and if we are playing a back three, I'd like to see a lot of progression through the middle parts of the pitch. And this is where a Conor Gallagher, in my estimation, actually plays an absolutely huge role, especially when it comes to link up passing in those central areas. But that being said, it's like I like the combination of Xavi and Odegaard. a little bit higher up the pitch. The question is it's going to be service into the box, and how consistently that is going to be taking place today. I wasn't surprised to see Solanke back in there after playing against Dortmund, and I think that actually is going to be quite pivotal, just considering his hold-up play and his work rate. So from that standpoint, I actually happen to really enjoy this lineup. It's probably the strongest that he possibly could have put out. Yesterday, my prediction was not a good one, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of redo that, and I'll just say a 1-1 draw.
1-1. Well, look, hopefully not. Hopefully, look, it's not defeat at the end of the day, but hopefully we can go and get the win today. But guys, make sure you, like I said, get across and check out Stevie's channel. I want to say a massive thank you to Donovan, Stevie, and Soren for giving up time today to be able to be here with us and to be able to discuss whatever questions Dave brings up in these shows. So I really do appreciate every single one of the boys here on the panel. I also want to appreciate you guys at home as well. Over 480 people listening as we speak. You know, good to see everyone's geared up, and hopefully we can go and get a win today. So thank you everybody for tuning in at home, and to the people who've gone the extra mile today, you know, to really help out the channel. We've got William Webb, we've got Logan, we've also got Adrian, and we've also got Ian Cook. We've also got Luca H and Dropkick Your Teacher. Really do appreciate every single one of you guys as well. It really does go a long way to helping myself and Jack and supporting us, you know, and trying to make this channel better and be able to produce more content and regular content and stuff like that. So really appreciate it, guys. And then Logan's gone with a 3-1. I think we'll take that, Logan, for sure. And then I just want to just quickly, just bring up John Maps here. He says, nice to see you, Irish. I appreciate your response to me yesterday. And look, I know you said you sort of find it hard to watch me, and I understand. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And I did try to be nice in that regard, but I did think you took it a bit too far at the end where you were like, Dave, you just hope Tottenham lose and crash and burn to suit your own agenda. Not the case whatsoever. I don't have a personal agenda against Thomas Frank or anything like that. At the end of the day, I gave my thoughts at the start of the season. I parked them once the season kicked off, got into it at the start of the season. But, you know, the longer this goes on, the more I revert back to my original thoughts. And you can't blame me in that regard. But I just want you to know, man, I'm not one of them where I have an agenda and I'm stuck to it. You know, giving evidence. And if this guy starts turning a corner and starts doing the right things and we go on wins, all of a sudden I'll sit there and I'll give him praise and credit where it's due, like I did after the Dortmund game. You know, I was expecting the worst. We came out 1-2-0, and even people in my own chat were still after Frank and stuff. And I was still sitting there going, guys, you know, in order so it's not a agenda, you got to give praise where praise is due and stuff like that. So I just hope you can realize that, John, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be sitting here arguing with the Spurs family. It's not why I'm here. I want to sit here and engage with you guys. I want to talk to you guys about this football club. You know, how we can make this football club better, you know, moving on and progress and go and compete and stuff like that. So I just hope people like you realize that one, John, on that, in that regard, my man. But look, guys, that's enough of me. We're going to end it off there. I'm going to grab a quick sample. We'll see you back here for the watch long. As always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Let's go.
Kulusevski forever.